It was 3 o'clock in the morning. The night air was still, heavy with anticipation as Chief An and Baek and Ho stood outside the imposing red gate. A week had passed since their guild members had ventured inside, and worry etched deep lines into Baek's face. Exhaustion tugged at his every movement, but he refused An's urging to rest. His thoughts were consumed with the fate of his trapped comrades. Finally, with a groan that echoed through the silence, the red gate opened. The dungeon had been cleared. Baek's heart leaped with a mixture of hope and dread as the hunters began to emerge. His first thought was of Kim Chul, the A-rank hunter who had been their best chance of survival. Relief surged through him, but it was short-lived. Only 4 hunters stepped out, and Kim Chul was not among them. Instead, it was the weakest of their group, Hee-jin, Ki-jong, Hwan, and Han Song-yi, who had survived. Shock and disbelief washed over Baek. How could the weakest survive a red gate while their strongest fell? Baek's eyes narrowed as he spotted Sung Jinho among the survivors. Overcome with anxiety and suspicion, he grabbed Jinho, demanding answers. But Jinho, weariness and irritation clear in his eyes, shrugged off Baek's hand, asked the others. He said coldly, not in the mood for explanations. The tension between them crackled like electricity. Baek, incredulous and enraged, squared up to Jinho, but Jinho, unwavering, reminded him that he had saved 3 of his hunters and brought them back alive. "You should be thanking me instead of threatening me," he said in his firm and unyielding voice. Baek's anger cooled as the truth of Jinho's words sank in. With a sigh, he stepped back and apologized for his arrogance. Jinho nodded, then turned and walked away with Han Song-yi. As they left, Baek turned to Chief An, his mind made up. "Recruit Sung Jinho," he ordered. "He has courage and strength. He must join our guild." Chief An nodded, understanding the significance of Baek's decision. A sense of relief settled over Chief An. His instincts about Jinho had been right all along. Driving home, Jinho glanced at Baruka's dagger, its shiny glow and unique aura catching his eye. He regretted not being able to extract Baruka's shadow despite trying 3 times, but at least he had the dagger, which granted him greater agility. Dropping Han Song-yi off at her home, they shared a brief, soft conversation before Jinho continued on his way. He realized the day wasn't over yet. He could still raid with Jinho. As the sun rose, Jinho met with Jinho, who in his usual hilarious fashion was dressed in armor and ready for action. On their way, Jinho decided to pick up Han Song-yi. Jinho, ever the joker, teasingly interrogated Jinho about whether something was going on between them. Jinho just smiled, amused by his friend's antics. As they arrived at the dungeon gate, Jinho and Jinho exited the car and entered the portal. Together, they continued with the raids, systematically clearing each area. At one of the gates, Jinho unleashed 2 of his shadow soldiers, Igris and Iron, on the monsters. Within moments, the monsters were decimated. Jinho, having never seen such a display of power, was shocked and awed. Jinho had anticipated this reaction, which is why he had only released 2 soldiers so as not to overwhelm Jinho. The next day, Jinho completed 19 raids as he had promised Jinho. They celebrated their accomplishment in a cafe, sharing drinks and discussing future plans. As they talked about the future, a flashback reminded Jinho of his mother. He held the key to the demon castle, a stark reminder that inside lay the potion that could cure his comatose mother. Determination set in his eyes. He knew what he had to do next. Jinho packed his bag with a sense of determination, his mind set on the task ahead. He made a quick excuse to his sister Gina, telling her he was going on a trip for a week. As he stepped out, the gravity of his mission weighed on him. The gate to the demon castle had emerged in the midst of the city, an ominous portal that promised both danger and opportunity. With the key to the demon castle in hand, Jinho couldn't help but recall the last time he had faced such a formidable challenge. He had defeated Cerberus back then, and now, with his level tripled, he felt more prepared than ever. His hand tightened around the key, and he entered the gate, ready for whatever awaited him inside. Upon entering, Jinho was greeted with a new quest: collect 10,000 demon souls. A special reward awaited him upon completing this daunting task, including weapons worth billions of gold. The dungeon was a field type with fire running through the walls, creating a hellish landscape that resembled a twisted version of Soul. As he ventured deeper, a group of lesser demons emerged from the flames, their eyes burning with fiery intent. Jinhoo's instincts kicked in, and he summoned his trusted dagger. The fight was fierce, his movements a blur of precision and power as he dispatched the demons one by one. Hours passed, but the experience points gained were minimal. He realized that as his level increased, so did the demand for experience points. He needed to pick up the pace if he wanted to reach higher levels and complete his quest. After clearing the first floor, Jinhoo received an item, a permit to enter the second floor. The permit, a divination circle, allowed him to move between floors. It was located where the End Soul Tower used to be. Jinhoo summoned one of his shadow soldiers, the Ice Bear, and leaped onto its back, commanding it to run towards the divination circle. As they moved, magical demons attacked, but the Ice Bear pierced through them with ease. Each floor of the demon castle was a separate world, and beasts with entry permits appeared at random. Only by obtaining these permits could Jinhoo use the divination circle to gain entry to the next floor. The Daesung Tower had 100 floors, each one a different world. Jinhoo encountered wave after wave of lesser demons, their numbers overwhelming but their individual strength lacking. It was a test of endurance rather than skill, forcing him to rely on his shadow soldiers to hold the line while he cut through the horde. His blade danced in the dim light of the castle, each swing a testament to his growing power. Tank, his massive shadow bear, barreled through the demons, scattering them like leaves in a storm. By the 27th floor, Jinhoo had collected around 2,116 demon souls. Even though Jinhoo was moving quickly, time was still his biggest enemy. He wasn't sure if he could reach the 100th floor within a week. The battles he'd faced so far had been pretty easy, but there were so many floors to climb, and the ticking clock weighed heavily on his mind. He knew he had to push himself harder and faster, but he couldn't shake the worry that he might run out of time before reaching his goal. Back in the human world, a whirlwind of events was unfolding. Baek, the guild master of White Tiger, found himself relentlessly harassed by media houses regarding the Red Gate incident. Reporters clamored for answers, questioning how high-ranking hunters had perished while lower-ranking hunters had survived. Baek, frustrated and unable to provide clear answers, could only repeat that investigations were ongoing. The reporters' desperation for an interview with the survivors was met with firm refusals from Baek, further arousing suspicions that he was hiding something, which in fact he was. In the midst of this chaos, Baek-ho's phone rang. To his surprise, it was Min Byung-gyu, a renowned S-rank healer and a good friend. Byung-gyu informed him that someone from Japan had contacted the Korean Hunter Association to inquire about a participant in the Jeju Island raids. Baek-ho's eyes widened at this revelation. The raid had taken place 4 years ago. Both Baek and Byung-gyu were among the survivors of that disastrous mission. 4 years ago, an S-rank gate had opened on Jeju Island, and several hunters had been dispatched to clear it. However, after 3 failed search and destroy missions, the Korean government abandoned efforts to save the island. Now, Jeju was overrun with ants, and a disturbing mutation had occurred. These ants could fly across the ocean, threatening other countries. Bodies of these mutated ants had started washing up on shores, sending chills down Baek-ho's spine as he heard this news. Meanwhile, Jinho, a hunter aspiring to lead, met with his father, presenting his guildmaster license and raid records. Jinho tried to convince his father to appoint him as the master of Yujin Guild. However, unbeknownst to Jinho, his father was aware of his secret. Hunter Hwan from the White Tiger Guild had revealed that Jinho was the one who had cleared the Red Gate and saved the other hunters. According to Jinho's raid records, Jinho was a member of his strike squad. Jinho's father, armed with this knowledge, proposed a challenge. If Jinho could recruit Jinho for Yujin Guild before his father recruited 2 S-rank hunters, Cha Hae-in and Byung-gyu, then he might consider making Jinho the guildmaster. Jinho's father had already offered Cha Hae-in the position of guildmaster and Byung-gyu a spot as a hunter, though he was retired. With a gleam in his eye, Jinho's father declared, "Let's see who recruits first." Back in the castle by the 48th floor, the demons had become more intelligent, their attacks coordinated and strategic. Jinho adapted, using his shadow exchange ability to outmaneuver his enemies and strike at their weaknesses. His shadow soldiers formed a phalanx around him, their movements precise and disciplined. The battles grew more complex, requiring not just strength, but also cunning and adaptability. Jinho's mind worked like a machine, analyzing each situation and devising the best course of action. The 50th floor presented Jinho with his first major boss, the ruler of the lower floors, the avaricious Vulcan and his guardsmen wielding massive swords. The guardsmen were high-ranking demons, but Jinho's shadow soldiers had grown stronger alongside him. Iron, Igris, and the Ice Bear tore through the guardsmen with ease, decimating them one by one. The Vulcan entered the battle, swinging its massive sword and cutting through Igris with a single blow. Enraged, Jinho unleashed his full strength, delivering a powerful punch that sent the Vulcan flying. The demon activated its skill of Rage, similar to Cerberus' skill, increasing its stats by 50%. The Vulcan's attacks became faster and more powerful, forcing Jinho to call upon Iron for his shield. Iron threw his shield to Jinho, who used it to block the Vulcan's relentless attacks. Despite the Vulcan's formidable strength, Jinho's agility and speed allowed him to dodge its powerful swings. He activated his skill, the Commander's Touch, to move backward using the recoil of his own attack. Realizing that direct confrontation wasn't working, Jinho strategized to slow the Vulcan down. He dashed away with the Vulcan chasing him, planning to tire it out before striking. Reaching his planned spot, Jinho leaped into the air, activated his speed skill, and landed a devastating blow on the Vulcan, slashing it down. The Vulcan roared in pain, finally collapsing as the battle of the 50th floor came to an end. The system rewarded Jinho with amazing items, the Demon Monarch's Earring, the Orb of Avarice, Vulcan's Horns, and most importantly, the Fragment of the World Tree. Jinho discovers new ways to enhance his shadow soldiers during a battle. He notices Iron passed his shield effectively to him in the midst of the battle, leading him to realize that his other shadows can also use weapons and items. Testing this, he gives the Orb of Avarice to a mage shadow, the Mage. Equipped with the Orb of Avarice, unleash torrents of fire and destruction, reducing entire swathe of building to ashes. This confirms that equipping his shadows with items can significantly increase their combat strength, giving Jinho a new strategic edge in battles. With each floor conquered, Jinho grew stronger, his skills sharper, his resolve unbreakable. The demon castle was a crucible, forging him into a force to be reckoned with. And as he stood on the 50th floor, looking up at the towering heights he had yet to scale, Jinho knew one thing for certain. He would not stop until he had conquered every floor, collected every soul, and secured the power he needed to save his mother. Meanwhile, in the east coast of the USA, the sun dipped below the horizon. A ripple in the air marked the emergence of a figure long thought dead. Il Hwang, father of the renowned hunter Jinho, stepped out of a portal, his return shrouded in mystery and tinged with the aura of the unknown. His sudden appearance after years of disappearance caused an immediate uproar, attracting the attention of the Federal Bureau of Hunters. Il Hwang was swiftly detained and taken to a secure facility, where the FBH began a rigorous interrogation. The agents, their eyes sharp with suspicion, fired question after question, trying to pierce the veil of Il Hwang's extraordinary survival. He revealed he had been trapped in a high-level dungeon all these years, a place where survival seemed impossible. Yet here he was, alive and seemingly more powerful than ever. The agents were both intrigued and wary, their minds racing with the implications of his story. How had he survived for so long? What abilities had he gained during his ordeal? They subjected him to a battery of assessments, probing his strength and intentions. Despite the intense scrutiny, Il Hwang remained composed, his eyes holding secrets that hinted at his incredible journey. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in South Korea, Jinho was oblivious to the unfolding drama involving his father. He was immersed in his own battles, climbing the ranks as a hunter, his power growing with each passing day. The world of dungeons and monsters consumed his every thought, leaving little room for the unknown perils that now surrounded his family. Back in the dungeon, Jinho ascended the towering staircase leading to the 75th floor of the Demon Castle. Each step brought him closer to his goal, and he knew that this floor would present a formidable challenge. The system had warned him of the second boss, Meteus, the Soul Shepherd. The name alone suggested a being of immense power, one who commanded the souls of the dead. The floor was a graveyard, filled with tombstones and mausoleums, the ground uneven and covered in a thin mist that swirled around his feet. In the center of the graveyard stood Meteus, a towering figure with red, glowing eyes and a crown-like horn protruding from his skull. His skeletal frame was adorned with a necklace made of bones, and he wore tattered robes that billowed around him as if moved by an unseen wind. The air around him shimmered with the restless spirits of the dead, their mournful wails echoing through the chamber. Jinho wasted no time. He summoned his shadow soldiers with a flick of his wrist, their dark forms materializing around him. Igris, Iron, Ice Bear, and the others took their positions, ready for battle. Jinho himself brandished his twin daggers, their edges gleaming with lethal intent. "Clear the path," Jinho commanded, his voice steady and authoritative. His shadow soldiers sprang into action, their forms a blur as they surged forward. Chaos erupted in the graveyard as the shadow soldiers clashed with the spectral warriors summoned by Meteus. The clash of steel and the wails of the dead filled the chamber as the battle erupted. Jinho's movements were a blur as he darted through the ranks of spectral warriors, his daggers cutting through their incorporeal forms. Each strike was precise, each movement calculated. His shadow soldiers fought with ferocity, their loyalty and strength evident in every swing of their weapons. Meteus observed the battle with a detached, almost bored expression. With a wave of his staff, he summoned more spirits, their numbers seemingly endless. The spectral warriors pressed the attack, their relentless assault threatening to overwhelm Jinho's forces. In the dim, eerie light of a blood-red moon, Jinho stood atop a towering structure, his silhouette stark against the ominous sky. Below him, the battlefield lay shrouded in a thick, foreboding mist, as if the very air held its breath in anticipation. The figure of Meteus loomed in the distance, a formidable foe who had challenged Jinho's resolve. With unwavering eyes, Jinho gazed down at Meteus, his expression a mask of steely determination. The air crackled with tension, the quiet before the storm. "Do the dead fear?" Jinho's voice rang out, clear and commanding, cutting through the silence like a blade. In a swift, decisive motion, Jinho leaped into the air. Time seemed to slow as he soared, his form a blur of power and precision. The blood moon cast an eerie glow on his figure, illuminating his path as he descended upon Meteus with unstoppable force. The clash was thunderous, a symphony of power and fury. As the crimson moon hung ominously in the night sky as Jinho descended upon Meteus, his blow struck true, delivering a devastating fatal strike that shook the very foundations of the demon castle. The ground trembled with the force of their encounter, the echoes of battle fading into the night. As the dust settled, Jinho stood victorious, a testament to his strength and indomitable spirit. With his enemy vanquished, Jinho took a moment to catch his breath, feeling the adrenaline of victory course through his veins. The system, ever vigilant, chimed in with a series of notifications. Among the rewards were the coveted spring water from the Forest of Echoes and the Demon Monarch's necklace. The latter was a prized piece, complementing the earrings he had previously obtained from Vulcan. With just one more item needed to complete the set, Jinho's determination only grew stronger. As he collected the 10,000 demon souls required to complete his quest, the system rewarded him further. Weapons of formidable power, a random cursed loot box, and the blueprint of the holy water of life appeared in his inventory. Intrigued, Jinho opened the loot box, revealing yet another key, shrouded in mystery and promising more adventure. The blueprint, however, held his immediate attention. It contained the secrets to crafting the holy water of life, a potent elixir capable of curing any illness, a cure for his mother's condition. Without hesitation, Jinho exited the demon castle, his thoughts singularly focused on his mother. Arriving at the hospital, he sat by her bedside, the blueprint spread out before him. The recipe for the holy water of life called for 3 rare ingredients. The first, a fragment from the world tree, was already in his possession, a prize for defeating Vulcan on the 50th floor. The second, the spring water from the Forest of Echoes he had just secured from Meteus on the 75th floor. Only one ingredient remained, the purified blood of a demon, likely guarded by the final boss at the very top of the demon castle. Determined to see his quest through, Jinho clenched his fists. The past week had been transformative. His relentless pursuit of power had propelled him to the ranks of S rank, a status that left him with little to fear. Yet this was not about power or prestige, it was about saving his mother. Back in the USA, the situation grew even more tense. Hwang Dong-soo, a formidable hunter with a personal vendetta, learned of Il Hwang's reappearance. Dong-soo was the brother of Hwang Dong-suk, who had fallen to Jinho's blade. Fueled by a thirst for revenge, Dong-soo sought out Il Hwang, intending to use him as a pawn in his plan to exact retribution on Jinho. The encounter between Dong-soo and Il Hwang crackled with danger. Dong-soo's eyes gleamed with malevolence as he confronted Il Hwang, his intentions clear. But Il Hwang, seasoned by years of survival in a deadly dungeon, was not easily intimidated. The air between them was thick with tension, a prelude to the larger conflict looming on the horizon. As the tension between Hwang Dong-soo and Sung Il Hwang reached its peak, a fierce battle erupted. The two hunters clashed with a ferocity that shook the very ground beneath them. Hwang Dong-soo, driven by his desire for vengeance, attacked with relentless aggression. His strikes were swift and powerful, fueled by the anger of his brother's death. But Sung Il Hwang, seasoned by years of surviving in a high-level dungeon, proved to be an opponent beyond Dong-soo's reckoning. The battle was brutal and short-lived. Hwang Dong-soo, battered and bruised, was ultimately no match for Sung Il Hwang. With a final, decisive strike, Il Hwang sent Dong-soo crashing to the ground, his body broken and his spirit wounded. As Dong-soo lay there, defeated, the realization of his inadequacy burned deeply within him. Days later, Hwang Dong-soo awoke in a hospital bed, his body aching from the confrontation. Despite the pain, a twisted grin spread across his face. The defeat had only fueled his desire for vengeance. With his eyes burning with determination, Hwang Dong-soo made a silent promise. He would come back for Sung Il Hwang and his son Sung Jinho, and when he did, he would ensure that the next encounter ended in his favor. The seeds of a future conflict were sown, setting the stage for an even greater clash of powers. Thanks for watching, like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Until next time, happy watching!